Welcome, everyone. This is Realise Resilience. I'm Alister Gray, and I'm delighted to be joined by another great friend of mine, Jody Shield. Jody, it's great to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you for giving us your time, because I know you're in the midst of some busy projects, and I kind of reached out to Jody on WhatsApp and feel like I kind of forced you into helping us out, Jody, but you responded so quickly, as you always do, and it's really awesome to have you here.
It's always a yes, Ali, and what I love about us is you always message me at 11:11.
That's unintentional, might I add. It's a synchronicity. Well, Jody and I have known each other for a long time, and over the last few years in particular have become close because we are moving in the same circles. We both share a huge ambition to serve people, to serve our planet, to serve business leaders and owners, and so we've developed, a really fond admiration for one another's work. And for those of you that don't know Jody, Jody is the first, I believe, conscious business coach. She's a TEDx speaker, an author, and a digital entrepreneur. So you've got so many things going on, Jody, and I've watched you grow over the last 6-7 years, and it's been incredible watching that evolution. So you're someone who inspires me a lot. You're someone who I admire a lot, and like I said, it's great to have you on here today.
Thank you so much. What a lovely, lovely intro. Thank you.
Well, I hope I never missed anything out.
Didn't miss anything. I was like listening to them and going, gosh, I really do have a kind of quite varied portfolio career. I remember seeing a healer friend of mine about 7 years ago before all of this kicked off, and I was still working in advertising. And she said, Jody, you're going to have a portfolio career. And I was like, what does that mean? She said, you're going to have a hand in different pies. And I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Oh, her prediction was right.
Yeah, she was like, you're going to write 5 books, you're going to be on TV, you're going to have your own series. And I was like, really? Okay. And people make predictions and you're like, really? Is this really going to happen? I'm like, yeah, well, everything's possible right here, right now. So of course it's all going to happen. It's all up for grabs.
Absolutely. And I love how you've taken your own journey and inspired so many others to do the same. I think that's what's beautiful. You're vulnerable. You talk about your experiences very openly. And I think, for many, that's really refreshing.
Thank you. I mean, vulnerability is the trickiest thing to talk about. And it's so tricky to open up. And I think being in experiences like we're currently in at the moment, it really invites us to tune in to this deep sense of ourselves and really reveal what's going on so that we can all be on the same level, because we're all human and we're all going through the same experience right now, which is brilliant. I think this is such a time in history where we are all on the same level and we are all going through experiences, and the coronavirus that we're experiencing it basically affects people of all hierarchies, all ages, all races, everybody. It doesn't discriminate, which is actually quite unique and interesting in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that concept of, bringing people together through this as well, because it's shown up quite a lot in the other conversations I've had is, although there's these challenges and these, experiences that we wouldn't wish upon ourselves or anyone else, in a strange way, it's taken these things to happen to bring us back together, to make us feel more united and connected. And like you said, it doesn't discriminate against anyone, which means that we are all in this together. And I think that's one of the real, beautiful gifts that have come out of this experience as well.
I think I keep going back to this idea that we're in a very important moment in history right now. And I'm not saying that as someone who isn't empathic and tuned into the adversity that's going on at the same time. However, for everyone that's finding it tricky right now, we are in this strange moment of history, and we will define ourselves in a certain way. We will evolve, we will move through this, and we will come out of this a brighter version of ourselves in some way. And Ali, you're making history right now with this campaign and what you're doing. This is a historical moment as well. So such powerful moments happening right now.
We're trying, and I appreciate the acknowledgement as well, because you sometimes forget when you're in the midst of trying to create something, right? I shared with you before we came on, I feel like I've got square eyes from looking at screens so much, and like it's been a lot of late nights to put it together. But you're right, these moments can define who we are on an individual level, but also on a collective level as well. And it feeds in quite nicely to the theme, obviously. We are exploring resilience, and what I've come to realize going through this journey is that resilience, you know, is made up of so many different ingredients, so many different aspects, and we've already talked about some. But I would love to know, what your own personal experience is of resilience, your definition, and then maybe we can jump into, a story of your own that you've had to dig in deep and find that resilience within yourself.
Such a nice question. I feel I automatically default to me showing up in a new industry, a new business. And I've had my business now for 7 years, and it's gone through lots of evolutions, as a business does. And I feel like I had quite a lot of adversity in school to overcome based on what was going on with me. So when I started a business, it felt like there was lots of interesting programs and limiting beliefs and behaviors and thoughts coming up. So it was really about me learning that as an entrepreneur, I had to know that there's no such thing as failure and keep going no matter what was, facing me or what was coming up in my way. And I think one thing that I just decided to do was to put one foot in front of the other and just think about the next step, the next step, the next step, the next step. And whenever you start something new, a new business, a new venture, a new project, like you're doing right now, there's this little part of you that's like, oh, can I do it? Is it possible? Are people going to laugh at me? Am I going to be judged? But what about all these other people doing amazing charitable things and causes, and these celebrities doing all these different things? How am I going to fit in with that? And these little thoughts and little beliefs, and you see my body language has gone really small, like a little child as I'm sharing this. They come up and they question what we're doing. And so resilience for me is about seeing everything that's coming up and choosing to carry on regardless. And in that process of carrying on regardless, you are going through all these amazing experiences and reinforcing who you are as a person, who you are as a public figure, who you are as an expert, a leader, a teacher, a CEO, a boss, whoever, a wife, a mother. And you're building up this certain inner resilience, let's say. So for me, resilience is very much an inside feeling, quality, trait, characteristic that we can keep reinforcing and building it like a muscle. Like when we want abs for our summer holiday, which might not happen until 2021 at this rate, we go to the gym, we train, we do abs exercises, for 5 days a week to really build that muscle. So for me, that is what resilience is for me. And I'm sure I've waffled on a little bit there, but I'm hoping that you get the point.
There's so many great things you've said, and there's 2 or 3 that I want to pull out. One, I love the muscle analogy. I'm going to come back to that because you've just given me an insight, actually, which is nice. The first thing you said was when you talked about your business, you said, knowing that there's no such thing as failure. I loved hearing that, because I think that the fear to do something, to take those steps, those mini steps that you talked about, which again is shown up a lot when people talk about resilience, the micro steps.
Yeah.
But reframing failure, there's no such thing as failure.
Yeah.
Is a beautiful thing because it often prevents us, right? It makes us feel.
It really does.
Yeah. Paralysis by analysis to move forward.
Yeah.
How did you capture that thought?
I was going to say something because many people watching will not know me, never met me before. So it's worth saying that I'm a very spiritual person, very open-minded. To me, everybody's spiritual because we all have this life force energy running through us that you and I are experiencing right now. However, for me, being able to kind of tap into this knowledge that I have a soul and I'm living this great experience here on earth and I'm making the most of it is really powerful. And on a kind of soul level, you know, really our souls are here to experience everything. So everything is a successful experience. Whether we fail or succeed, it's an experience, because our success is measured on the experiences that we go through, in a way. That's how I see it anyway. So therefore, if you're open to that definition or that possibility, and it's okay if you're watching this going, well, I don't really know what she's talking about, I might be your first foray into spirituality, and that's okay. But it really helps me because, you know, like I said, souls are here to experience everything, the pain, the joy, the discomfort, the comfort, the excitement, the depression, the anxiety, the sadness, everything. So I know that everything's an experience. Therefore, there's no such thing as failing, because failing as a perception from our mind is an experience unto itself. Is that okay? I hope that makes sense to everyone. I'm sure it will resonate on some level.
Well, it completely does, Jody. And what I love about it is that it kind of, you know, when we let go of that label of what failure is, right, and the stereotypical label of what failure is, suddenly you rename it as an experience. An experience that you may not want to have all the time, but an experience nonetheless that when you find an acceptance around that, you then can look at that experience with a very different lens on, right? You can look at it and start drawing out the gifts, start drawing out, you know, what impact did that have on me as a human being? How did I grow through that experience? What lessons have I learned that can help me be more empathetic, can help me, you know, encourage others? So I think it's a really beautiful way to capture it. You know, renaming the failure is just an experience, part of the journey.
It's my daily practice at the moment.
And tell me the small steps forward. How have you taken the small steps forward? Then I'm going to come to the muscle analogy, but the small steps forward that you mentioned, you know, for you going through these different evolutions of your business, going into new environments, you know, you talked about that vulnerability earlier. How do you find yourself taking the steps forward when the mind is saying you can't? You know, you talked about saying that little thing that came up. I was thinking it's a big thing. I've experienced it this week, you know, where the mind tries to prevent you from moving forward. So how do you take those steps?
Wow. Yeah. So for me, what comes up, well, many answers to this question. So it is about having a powerful mindset from the get-go. And you and I are huge advocates of morning routines and rituals and meditations and blessings and prayers and singing and everything. For me, especially at this moment in time, it's so important to have something that works from the get-go in the morning. So for me at the moment, as well as meditation, it's actually talking to myself in the mirror. And that's quite uncomfortable for most people to do, because I'm teaching it to thousands of people at the moment, and there's a lot of resistance. And myself, I was practicing it. I was teaching it to people for years and not doing it myself, because that's what sometimes we do. But I've started doing it for the last 3 weeks every day, morning and evening, 15 minutes at a time. And why it's so great is that when you're connecting with yourself in the mirror, eye to eye, you're connecting directly to the subconscious part of you that is the wounded person, the part of you that questions, the part in fear and insecurity and self-doubt. And you've got the opportunity, and it is an opportunity, to really connect directly to that part that really needs to hear that you're doing a good job and that it's all going to be okay, and that, you know, look at what you've created already and look at how much success you've had already, and wow, Jody, you're amazing. Because no one else will really give you what you need to hear. And it's unfair to expect your partner, your family, your kids, your friends to give you what you need all the time. So giving it to yourself is really powerful. And if you are on your own at the moment or living on your own, this is genius, because suddenly you feel like you've got a best mate in the mirror who's saying to you, hey, Jody, I'm going to be here every day for the rest of your life cheering you on. How does that feel? And then there's this little smile inside from your inner child that goes, yay, this is amazing. So honestly, I've been doing it every morning, every evening, and it has improved my communication so much. And I'm a clear communicator anyway, because I'm a speaker and I'm trained in speaking. But this is something different. It's like the communication is clear, my self-worth has been reinforced, my value has increased, the way that I feel about myself and what I share and what I sell and what I put out there to support people is just, there's that like deep acknowledgement of how great I'm doing and how successful I already am. So for me, when I'm taking like one step at a time moving forward, that just tool or technique, if you want to call it, is really good. And it's very amazing for resilience as well, because again, it speaks directly to the part of you that needs to be cheered on, needs to know that she or he's doing a really good job and it's okay, keep going, you know. That's basically the message here. So that's the answer to that.
You talked about communication, and what it was coming up for me as I listened to you was that, you know, the internal communication when it comes to resilience, as you know, is probably the most important thing, as well as the external communication. You know, you talked about self-esteem and self-worth. And I think those are two things that, you know, arguably everyone could do with, you know, really reaffirming that within ourselves.
Yeah.
And mirror work is something that, you know, I've had my own experiences of it. And, you know, what came up for me was how uncomfortable I felt the first time doing it.
Oh, I remember. Oh, for the first week, you feel uncomfortable.
I wanted to talk to that a little bit because, you know, there are going to be people who are watching this and they might think, mirror work, like talking to myself.
Totally.
How would you help people to overcome that fear or that doubt about speaking to themselves in the mirror? Because it felt weird to me, you know, the first time.
I'll give you support, but I'll also give 2 ways to enhance the mirror work and make sure it really works when your mind gets in the way. So remind me about those 2 little tips if I forget to say. Okay, I always take the view that if something really works and it's really beneficial and it's good for me and it's going to give me results, which this does, I promise you, 100% it does, then I don't really care if it makes me feel uncomfortable. Because I'm more invested in my self-development and growth and having the level of success that I desire. And this is not from my mind necessarily, it's desired from my soul. And so for me, that desire comes from this drive to help people and support people. And I know that the more confident I become, the more resilient I become inside, the more I'll get myself out there onto more stages and be more visible and help more people. So I will frame it to myself in that way. And because the results are quite quick, like for example, I'm starting a new group on Saturday. We open the doors for the new Facebook group where the community aspect lives on Wednesday, which was 2 days ago. There are already people who've never done mirror work having big breakthroughs. So it works quite fast. So if you can hang on in there and, you know, for me, it's getting the connection, first of all, before you launch into talking to yourself, which is quite uncomfortable at the beginning, getting the connection. So what I do is I stand in front of the mirror and I connect with my eyes and I just breathe in. Don't forget to breathe. I breathe in and I witness what adverse thoughts or negative thoughts start coming up to the surface. And usually it makes me laugh because they're thoughts like, oh, but you're too big for your boots, or, you know, who are you to talk to yourself in the mirror? That's showing off, or whatever those kinds of voices that were telling me that I was a show off from other young friends at parties when I was younger. You know, those voices are still kicking around somewhere in our psychology somewhere. So stick with it because it works. Do this because it works. See, things that work, like tools and techniques that really, really work on a mindset level, are often not that easy to do, and they require practice. Like when I first came across Tony Robbins' work, for example, my judgment on Tony Robbins' work at the beginning was like, he's cheating. All he's doing is repeating the same stuff again and again and again. I mean, he's not original in any way, right? And then I was like, whoa, but we learn through repetition, you know? So I had to do a complete 360 and go, oh, the reason why he has so much success is because he repeats things and because he practices things, because he's a master to his own self-development, self-improvement. So that's what I wanted to share first of all. Now, the 2 tools that will really enhance the mirror work. The first one is saying your name. So it's like, it will sound a bit like this, you know. So you've got your connection in the mirror, you're connecting. you know, and you might just start off by saying, wow, what a day. What an amazing day that was. Wow. Wow, there's lots of things that you've experienced this week. And then you start just saying your name. So, wow, Jody, you know, you've got to be really proud of yourself this week, because Jody, you've achieved so much. Jody, you're amazing. And I know it's hard for you to hear this, but you've got this, you know? So using your name is really, really good. Now, the other thing I'm going to say, but I'm not actually going to do it in case it's not allowed, but introduce the odd swear word, right? I'm not going to do a demo, but introduce the odd swear word. The reason is because when you swear at your subconscious, it's really effective, because that moment where you say a naughty word, the little inner child part of you goes, oh, that's a naughty word. And you suddenly break down the defense that's up, the defense that's in the way of you and the mirror. So if you can introduce a couple of swear words, you'll get better results. And I actually did a video on advanced mirror work in the group, in the community that I've just opened. And everyone was like, I can't believe Jody's just said the F word. Oh my gosh. I was like, you should see me speak on stage, because I swear when I feel called to swear, just to make sure people are paying attention.
Well, it can provoke and trigger, right, as well. And so it kind of breaks that pattern if you're looking in the mirror. And it's funny, as as you share your experiences of mirror work, I always remember my first experience was being asked by my healer and my coach at the time, when was the last time you looked in the mirror and told yourself that you loved yourself? That's what they asked me.
Wow, that's a big one.
That was a big one. And I remember laughing, and she said, no, I'm being serious. And I said, I've never done that. And she said, great, well, why don't you give it a go? And I remember squirming like, I cannot do that. Like, you know what? Every excuse under the sun. And she said, have you got a mirror? And I'm like, well, I have got a mirror. Yeah. She said, give it a go. And I remember when I first started, Jody, I couldn't do it. And that was the truth. And one of the reasons was because I never believed it, and I never felt it. And I never given the time to love myself, or to connect to part of myself that felt like it was selfish, or it was shameful, or whatever the other parts were that were preventing me. And so it started off for me as connecting, looking in the mirror, speaking to myself. I think I started off by giving some compliments, because it felt easier than to say I love you. And so there are likely going to be people thinking, probably one, they're a bit crazy, but two, there will be others that are thinking, it sounds interesting, but I really don't feel confident enough, or I don't feel like I can.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that's going on in our human race is this I'm not good enough program. And so I'm not good enough to be able to transform and reverse that and pivot on it, to use a phrase that's been bandied around a lot at the moment in business. You need to speak to that part of you in the mirror that believes that she or he is not good enough. And like you say, I love you. That'll come in a couple of months. So it's all okay. For me, I just have an intention, and my intention is and I'll say this to myself in my mind, okay, my intention is to speak to the part of me that is believing that I'm not good enough. And that might feel like a big ask for a lot of people watching this video, but give it a go, because if you can get directly to the source of that and talk to that place, and even start by saying, as you say, hey, well done for today.
Yeah, you're trying your best.
Yeah.
We've started doing it with our daughter. Jody knows, obviously, my daughter, and we've got a little 4-year-old, and she'll stand and look in the mirror, and I'll say, can you say, Rumi, I am beautiful inside and out? And she look in the mirror and does it. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to watch your kids doing this, because if you normalize it, we don't build up those constructs that tell us we aren't good enough, or we can't love ourselves, or we're not deserving of love, all of these things. And I think it's a super powerful exercise. I was the biggest skeptic, just to put that out there. I thought it was a waste of time. I thought it was and
Me too.
And then fully embraced it. And it had such a big impact on self-esteem, particularly.
I'm going to go and do it off the back of this call.
So I've got a mirror just over there. But do you know what's, you said a couple other things, Jody, and I'm going to keep my eye on the time for us as well. But one of the things you said was the repetition part, and I really want to pick that up, and it links back to the muscle analogy. I knew I'd come back to it at some point, but the repetition part is really important, right? Because only through consistent, repetitive approaches to anything will we develop, one, neural pathways that will develop habitual thinking patterns, develop habitual behaviors. And so the repetition, I would say that is important for everything that we're talking about. Repetition of mirror work, repetition of morning routines, repetition of affirmations, those self-belief affirmations, repetitions of meditation, of breath work, whatever, your thing is, whatever the thing that gets you feeling connected, more balanced. Repetition, I found, is the key, and it comes back to that part around the muscle. What you said earlier, because people have talked about how you develop resilience, and for me, I feel like resilience is innate in us. And when you talked about that muscle, it just brought the two together for me and said they both coexist, of course. It's a bit like all of our muscles, let's use our abs, the example you gave, are there, but sometimes they're weaker and sometimes they're stronger. And so they are innate in us. Muscles are innate in us. Resilience is innate in us. Sometimes we have to work through repetition to develop that. And I think the repetition when it comes to resilience is those many steps forward, those moments of noticing when your thoughts are running away and bringing them back into the present. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I'm nodding like a nodding dog in the back of a car.
It's such a powerful analogy. When you start knowing, this is something I have, you can almost take comfort in that, where this isn't something for the magical, the successful, the rich, the famous. It's something that's just there. And sure, we need to develop it and we need to strengthen it, but it is there. It's innate.
Love it.
Powerful stuff. So,
absolutely.
So tell me, Jody, obviously through your experience, as you've developed this resilience over time, what has been the major benefits of going through these, difficult experiences in life? What is the reflection on those moments where you've came up against challenge, and what advice can you give to others that are maybe going through difficult times at the moment?
I'd like to actually share a story with you of when we were talking about preparing for this video, and you asked me to think of an experience. One experience really popped up in my mind, so I really feel called to share it a little bit, and then maybe we'll reflect on it, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, because I'm following my intuition on this one. So about 10 years ago, I was traveling around South America, and we were hiking the Inca trails in Peru. And basically they're a network of trails that were formulated by Incas trading coffee and lots of things. And they're all around the mountains. And so one of these days we were on a expedition for 4 days, and we were in a Jeep, and we were climbing up to the top of this mountain. And the idea was that we would pick up BMX bikes and then bike down this mountain. So we were just going up to the mountain. It was going to be quite quick, maybe a 20-minute drive, and then biking down, and then we continue our expedition. And actually we were in this Jeep. We had really nothing with us. Like, I think I probably had a shirt on like this, and probably trousers on like I've got on at the moment. So no real hiking gear, because we were biking down. And actually we were halfway up the mountain in this like 4x4 thing, and it started to snow, and it started snowing really, 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 really heavily. Now, the Peruvian people are not necessarily very experienced at dealing with snow. And so there were no snow wheels or snow grips in the vehicle. And very, very quickly, the road that we were climbing up got very, very blocked with traffic. And so essentially we were moving very slowly up this road, and then the decision was made that we'd have to get out of the vehicle and walk. And the only way we could walk is up to the top of the mountain, because it was actually shorter than going back down. So we decided to hike up in the snow. And by this point, it looks like a ski resort, right? Just all around the mountain. It's like a ski resort, basically. It literally the snow just came like this out of nowhere. So we hiked up to the top of the mountain, and there was this abandoned church. So there's no heating, there's nothing. I've got this on. I'm absolutely soaking because there's no waterproofs and it's snowing. I remember that we were with two brothers who were rugby players. Thank goodness, because The rest of the group were, you know, not necessarily people who could cheer us on and carry us and lift us if we needed it. So we got to this church, we closed the doors and we all huddled together, and really we had candles in the church to heat us, and that was it. And it was getting darker and darker and darker, and our guide decided to completely go within himself and not make a decision about what we needed to do, because he'd never been in an experience like this. So some people wanted to stay in the church, but if we'd have stayed in the church, we would have probably died of hypothermia and frozen, because it was so cold outside, and none of us had any warm clothes. Or we could risk it and leave the church and start to hike down the mountain. Now, the hike down the mountain is 4 hours, bear in mind. It's dark. I don't think anyone had any flashlights or torches, because it was all in our baggage being taken to the next hostel. So we left the church and we started hiking down the mountain, and we got down about half an hour, and then we saw a truck that was like, you know, making its way down the mountain. So we're like, okay, we'll get in the truck. Brilliant. We arranged to have a lift. We all got in, and then the truck started spinning on the ice. Now, bear in mind, we're on a mountain trail. The other side of the road is just the drop. So we're like mountain, road, drop. So this vehicle starts spinning round, and essentially it was just about to kind of like edge off the side of the road, and we just all like, no, we jumped out while it was moving, because otherwise we would have literally fallen off. So anyway, massive experience. We then hiked 2 hours or 3 hours down the mountain. We finally, you know, found somewhere I don't even imagine how I even got through a 4 or 5 hour hike with just something like this on in the snow. And then after it started snowing, it started raining, because obviously as you come down the mountain, rain. So I'm like, I mean, no one's speaking. We're just walking along trying to think, are we going to survive? Are we going to get there? The guide doesn't even know where we're going. So we get to this next hostel, and we're kind of there, and the guide's like, right, so what should we do then? And I was like, I mean, are we continuing with this expedition? You know, surely you're going to call this off. And he's like, what does everyone want to do? And everyone's like, no, we're here now, we'll keep going. And I was like, so anyway, we kept going, then we climbed Machu Picchu. So it was just one of the most intense experiences of my life, because I could have potentially died by going off the side of the cliff with this van. And I didn't talk about it really for about 3 years. And I remember I was in the kitchen at a dinner party at my parents' house, and we were talking about something, and I said, oh yeah, I nearly died once. And my mum and dad were like, what? And I said, yeah, I nearly went off the edge of a cliff in this van. And I told them the story, and they were like, oh, you never told us this, what? So yeah, that was one of my most defining moments, where I had to find this like deepest shred of inner strength that was like, it was almost like I was going through these different experiences in this one experience that was just like adding salt to the wounds. And it was just like testing me on every level. You know, was I able to keep myself warm after hiking in the rain and snow with a blouse on like this for 5 hours? Was I able to keep walking when we've had no food, no water? We didn't have no water, no food for 5 hours. Was I able to keep moving forward? Was I then able to keep going on this expedition? Was I then able to, you know, get up at 6 a.m. that 2 nights later and climb Machu Picchu? So it was just like this succession of experiences. And actually, after climbing Machu Picchu, I was horrendously ill. It was the trauma, it was whatever it was. I was just so ill for 2 days. But really what it taught me was keep going. Like this whole thing, we're going to go right back to where we started at the beginning. Put one foot in front of the other and keep going. That's all you can ever do, because you don't know what's ahead, really. Even though the mind tries to make predictions about what's ahead, really, things can change in any moment. The evidence is clear of what's going on in the planet at the moment, in the world. COVID-19, things can change in an instant. So all you can ever do is be as present as possible, is show up for the experience and put one foot in front of the other.
I love that. I feel like that's a drop the mic moment. But you know, it's I never knew that story, Jody. So thank you.
I never told anyone. That's why I wanted to share it, because I was like, yeah, holy CRAP, I nearly died twice that day. Yeah.
And I think, you know, you said the lesson is one step forward, but there's also another lesson in there, for me. So the one step forward, being present, but also to know that we are incredibly resilient beings.
Yeah.
You know, like if someone had said to you, Jody, could you handle this experience before you'd found yourself in it?
Yeah.
You might be able to say yes now, but you know, you'd question that.
Absolutely. You're so right. It's really, we go through these experiences that test us on so many levels, and we can only really exist in the experience and accept what's happening to us in that moment. And then by accepting what's going on in the moment, can we then move through them? So yeah, we're always much more capable and resilient than we believe we are, because you know, everything's a belief, isn't it? So we know that, you know, we're so strong. You know, I was thinking, Ali, just on this point, actually, at the moment, obviously we're in lockdown and in a phase. I mean, you guys might be watching when we're out of this, so if you are, we're taking lots of learnings from it at the moment. But one thing I just wanted to share is, like, you know, I've been biking around London, and it's amazing because there's no cars, there's no real traffic or smog or anything. And I've noticed, at the beginning, I didn't really notice any homeless people at all. And I'd heard that they've been put up in council flats and assisted living and all of those types of things. But now they've started to come out again. And I'm thinking, how are these homeless people still alive, still moving forward, still getting alcohol and drugs and food and all those three things that keep them going, when there's no one around to give them money, and there's no one around to give them food, and there's no one around to give them alcohol or drugs or anything like that? So it's like, I mean, there's probably people selling them drugs still, but I was just thinking, like, they're probably surviving off scraps and, you know, things in bins, and just the bare minerals, the bare bones of people's, you know, waste. And how are they still going? Like, how are they, what are they eating? How are they surviving? You know, and they're still going. And sometimes I see very, very old homeless people who clearly have been on the streets for like their whole life, probably born on the streets. How are they still going? You know, how are they still going? They're not getting nourishment, vitamins, minerals. They're not getting vaccines. They're not, you know, all the things that we think that we need to survive and thrive. Water, they're not getting all of that. They're still walking around. And yes, they're out of their body. And yes, they're, you know, disconnected, probably a little bit insane because of what they're dealing with, but they're still alive. It baffles my mind, you know?
The strength and the willpower of the human being can be quite incredible. And I think, you know, something you said earlier a few minutes ago was around, you know, we are all resilient. And that is the message of this campaign. You know, we're trying to help. You mentioned some of the most vulnerable people there, you know, people who are displaced on the streets, who are homeless, who are facing these challenges. How are they surviving? And, you know, we want to take this campaign out to as many people as possible that can spread this message to say, you are resilient. We are resilient. We're all resilient, and together we can become even more resilient by reminding one another of that, by supporting each other, by offering our hand to help others who are less fortunate. You know, we are in supporting some amazing charities and social enterprises as part of this campaign, as you know, and you know, that's part of the reason behind this. It's like, right, how do we mobilize, you know, a network of people that maybe are a little bit more fortunate than others, and then encourage them to give back and contribute? So I love that you brought that into the conversation as well, Jody, because that's the underpinning message. We are all resilient. And I think your stories and your sharing today is really underpinned the message. You know, I love the technique of mirror work. I loved you sharing so openly about your own challenges of coming through business, and how you've used those adverse moments to then channel that into, you know, giving back and working for the greater good, if you like. So
one final thing to share.
Please.
If I don't share this, you might see, you may not. I've got a necklace that says surrender. I've also got it tattooed on my arm, because in moments of adversity, all we can ever really do is surrender. That's it.
Surrender and trust the process. I love it. But what a nice message to end on. And before we go, you know, for anyone watching, Jody, who maybe don't know your work, or this may be the first time they're experiencing you, or maybe they have and they want to reconnect, how can they best reach out to you? How can they connect with your work? Where can they find you?
Amazing. So Instagram at Jody Shield, JodyShield. And yeah, follow me there. Follow me there. My website's jodyshield.co.uk as well. There's a podcast that I have called Be Electric, available on any podcast platform, so you can go and listen in. And yeah, I hope to get to know you guys and see you again soon.
Well, Jody, thank you so much. Go check out Jody's work. She's incredible with what she does. You're helping so many people, so keep inspiring. And I'm looking forward to us catching up sometime again soon.
Thank you so much, Ali. All the best of luck with the campaign.
Thanks so much. Okay. Bye-bye.